So you better watch close, or tomorrow in class, this is what we're going to have set up in all the Algebra 2 classes. We're going to be looking at piecewise functions. Don't forget, the key word here is function, okay? Function means that an x can only map to one y, so it still has to pass the vertical line test. So the graph will be in pieces. So for instance, let's look at this first graph. This first graph says, graph this line, f of x equals negative 2x plus 1, so I'm going to read it like this, but only where x is less than or equal to 2. Okay, these always confused me, so I always did this. I would graph the line, and these are small little dots, so we're going to hope that my line matches. Down 2 over 1, and up 2 backwards 1. Okay, and I only want it to be x is less than 2. Okay, so I'm just going to put a couple more points on here. So if I were to complete this, I would draw the line from here all the way through. Less than or equal to 2. But if I look, my x, here is x equal to 2. So I only want my x's going this way. So I need to stop my graph right here at this point where x equals 2. And since it's less than or equal to 2, this point is going to be a closed circle, and I'm going to erase, oh shoot, erase the rest of this. Okay, now I'm going to look at the other line. So now I'm going to look at f of x equals 5x minus 4, where x is greater than 2. So I'm going to plot the line. F of x is fx 5x minus 4, so I'm going to start down here at negative 4. And I'm going to rise 5, run 1. Rise 5, run 1. My eyes are terrible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, run 1. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, run 1. Okay, that would be my graph. But I only want, okay, so if I were to draw in this whole line, I only want where it's greater than 2. So again, I'm going to go to 2 on my graph. Here is where it starts, right here. I only want where x is greater than 2. So I only want this piece of the function. So I don't want any of this blue going backwards. So again, I'm going to erase that part. But because of this program that I'm using, that doesn't work really well. So I'm going to erase this part and this part. And I'm going to put an open circle right here. So my graph is going to be starting at 1. Here we go, closed circle, going this way, and an open circle going this way. Notice if I put a vertical line test through the 2, it will hit this point, but it won't hit this point, so this still is a function. On the next page of the worksheet, you'll see these problems. So let's just talk about that. If you are not working on a worksheet, you need to go back into the calendar and go to the Piecewise worksheet and print out a copy of this, because these notes are coming right from there. This is the worksheet we'll work on in class tomorrow. If you are, you'll notice that this section doesn't have very much room, so you'll need to pause and get a piece of paper out. So go ahead and pause and do that. So what it says now is I'm going to evaluate the function for the given value of x. And you can see I have 3 functions here. I have an f of x that's 2 pieces. I have a g of x that's 2 pieces, and I have an h of x that's 2 pieces. So I'm just going to look at number 1 to start. Number 1 says to evaluate f of 2. So the first thing I need to know is I'm going to be looking at the f function. Okay? I'm going to be looking at the f function. The second thing I need to look at, so A, is going to be to pick the function. B is to figure out what piece am I going to look at. Well, I'm looking at f of 2. And if you look at this, remember that means x equals 2. When it's inside the parentheses, that's f of x. So 2 is x. And if I look here, this first piece is if x is less than or equal to 0. Well, 2 is not less than or equal to 0. So let's look at the next one. This next piece is if x is greater than 0. Well, x is 2, that is greater than 0. So this is the piece I'm going to evaluate the 2 at. And what it says is the function equals 2 if x is greater than 2. So C, my answer, f of 2 equals 2. All right, let's look at number 3. Okay, again, I'm looking at function f. X is 0. So x equals 0. So now I have to come back here. Do I look at the first piece or the second piece? Is x less than or equal to 0? Well, yes, x equals 0. So I'm looking at this first piece. It will never fit in both pieces. So this says the function equals 3 if x is less than or equal to 0. So then if f of 0 fits in that first piece, it equals 3. Okay, let's look at number 5. This says g of 7. So the first thing I know is I'm looking at the g function of 7. Well, I have to figure out which piece does it fit in. Does it fit in this piece or this piece? 7 is not less than or equal to 3. 7 is greater than 3. So I'm going to use this piece. I am now taking my 7 and I'm going to plug it in. So I figured out what piece it is, and now I'm going to plug my 7 in. 2 plug in 7 minus 1 gives me 15. I'd like you to pause and I'd like you to try number 8 and number 11. So for 8 and 11, you should have gotten 8, g of 3 equals 8, and number 11, h of negative 1 equals 5. So really quickly, if I'm looking for g of 3, that means I'm going to fit in this piece because this piece is x is less than or equal to 3. So I equal 3, so I'm putting it in this piece right there. I'm taking the 3 and plugging it in here. For 11, h of negative 1. So now I've gone to the h function. Negative 1 is not less than or equal to negative 2. It's greater than negative 2. So I'm going to plug the negative 1 right in there. Don't forget, when I plug in parentheses, when I plug in, it's always in parentheses. I think for the matter of time, we're going to skip this page and do it in class tomorrow. All right, what if I had to graph one of these? So we're going to graph them in 3 different colors right here. And I'm going to do it a little differently in case you didn't like the erasing from the very beginning. The first one says I want to graph f of x equals x plus 1 only if x is less than 0. So I'm going to make a table, and I'm always going to do 0 because I have to have somewhere to start because it says less than 0, so my first number is going to be 0. And if I plug that in, I get 1. Less than 0, I'm going to go to negative 1 and I get 0. Negative 2 and I get 1. Sorry, negative 1. And I'm going to plot those points. So I've plotted those points, which means I know my line is going to go this way. The only thing I need to fix is if it's less than 0, this 0 point has to be an open circle. So let's try that again. This is supposed to be around that point. That should be an open circle. Okay, now I'm going to make my next table. So this table is for the second rule. It says that x is going to be between 0 and 2. So I'm going to plug in numbers between 0 and 2. If I plug 0 into here, I get 1. If I plug 1 into there, I get 0. If I plug 2 in there, I get 1. 0, 1, 1, 0, 2, 1. Okay. I'm going to pause and put them on my graph. Ah, it's a negative 1, isn't it? So there are my points. I'm going to connect those points. And notice I have equal signs on both sides of here. So these would both be filled dots. Now I'm going to graph the last one. I'm going to put that in this Tinkerbell green for the Disney theme tomorrow. I want x greater than 2. So I'm going to start with 2. So I'm graphing this one now, f of x. Okay. Be able to see it. So I'm going to plug in 2 and I get 1. I'm going to plug in 3 and I get 2 because I want to be greater than 2. 4 and I get 3, and I'm going to pause and plot those points. And since I don't have an equal sign here, this first point with 2, because I want to be greater than 2, this point has to be an open circle. So I'm going to make this an open circle greater than 2. That's a piecewise. Okay, last thing we have to do, this is number 8. I think it's on the very back page of that worksheet. I need to write the piecewise for this function. Notice it is a function. If I do a vertical line test right here, it will hit this point, but this is open, so it will not hit a point right here. And I have 2 pieces. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say f of x equals, and open up a bracket. I'm going to do this bottom graph first, and I'm assuming it should be on that line, that the computer just didn't get it great. And this is the equation y equals 2. So f of x equals 2 when x is greater than or equal to negative 2. Right here is where it starts, at negative 2. So my graph equals 2 for everything greater than or equal to negative 2. Now I'm going to do this second part right here. Okay, and I can see if I keep going, the slope is rise 1, run 1, that I have a y-intercept of this. So the equation, if I were to put in this whole line, okay, is f of x equals x plus 4. But I don't want this whole line in over here. Okay, so the equation of that graph is x equals 4. It's a positive 1 slope and a beginning point of 4. So positive 1, beginning point of, oh, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Way to count. So let me, whoops. Let me erase this 5. Nope, it won't erase. So we're going to have to just go over it. Okay, now, where do I want that? What x is? Well, it starts at negative 2 and it goes all the way to the left. So I'm going to write x has to be less than, because it's an open circle, negative 2. Now, you could write these another way. Don't forget, I can do negative infinity to negative 2. And I could also do negative 2 included to positive infinity. Either way, they both work. See you tomorrow.